Welcome back to Narrow Path Doctrine. My name is Jim. We're going to continue our series here called Deeper Dive. We are taking a look at the book of Jude, and we are at verses 5 through 7 today. Now, in Jude 5:7, the author continues his warning to the believers about the dangers of false teachers, using vivid examples from the Old Testament to illustrate the consequences of rebellion, disobedience, and immorality. These verses emphasize the seriousness of departing from the truth and show how God's judgment on those who reject him is certain and righteous. First of all, we'll have a listen to Jude 1:5.
I will therefore put you in remembrance, though ye once knew this, how that the Lord, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed them that believed not.
Now, the deeper dive here is a call to remember. Jude begins with the phrase, I will therefore put you in remembrance, signaling that he is not presenting new information, but reminding them of the lessons they already know. This is a common teaching method in Scripture, 2 Peter 1:12 through 13 for reference there. As believers often need to be reminded of key truths that can be forgotten or overlooked in the face of new challenges. The example of Israel's unbelief, the first example here Jude gives, is from Israel's history. After God delivered the Israelites from Egypt, performing miraculous acts like parting the Red Sea and providing for them in the wilderness, many of them still lacked faith. As a result, they were destroyed in the wilderness. Numbers 14:29 through 35 for reference. Now, the key point here, the Israelites had been saved from Egypt, a type of the world and slavery to sin, and they did not continue in the faith. This shows that initial apparent deliverance or salvation does not mean that someone will continue in belief. God's judgment fell on those who, despite having seen his works, refuse to trust and obey him. The deeper dive application here, this serves as a stark warning to Jude's readers, and to us, of course, today, that it's not enough to begin in the faith, but one must persevere in belief and obedience. We need to check ourselves always. Apostasy, or turning away from the faith, leads to judgment, just as it did for the Israelites in the wilderness. So in the context of the false teachers, Jude is warning that they too may have initially appeared to be part of the community of believers, but their lack of true faith would result in judgment. Let's move on to Jude 1:6.
And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day.
Now, a deeper dive here is on the angels who fell. Jude's second example is drawn from the angelic realm. He refers to a group of angels who kept not their first estate or original position, but left their own habitation. This likely refers to the rebellious angels who followed Satan in the rebellion against God, as well as the sons of God mentioned in Genesis 6:1 through 4, who left their heavenly dwelling to engage in immoral relationships with human women. That's a big subject, and maybe we'll cover that some other time. It is the Nephilim. The key phrase here is kept not their first estate, suggesting that these angels had a privileged position in the presence of God, but chose to abandon their assigned role. The act of rebellion led to their punishment. The judgment on the fallen angels, the rebellious angels, are said to be reserved in everlasting chains under darkness, awaiting the final judgment. Now, this imagery of chains and darkness highlights the severity of their punishment, separation from God's presence, and confinement to eternal punishment. Judgment on the great day. This refers to the final judgment at the end of time, when all beings, including angels and humans, will stand before God. The rebellious angels are being held in anticipation of this ultimate judgment. We see reference to this in 2 Peter 2:4, as well as Revelation 20:10. Now, the deeper dive application here, Jude sees this example to show that even beings as powerful and privileged as angels are not exempt from God's judgment if they choose to rebel. It serves as a reminder to the church that no one, regardless of their spiritual status or past experiences, can escape judgment if they reject God's authority. This example also underscores the seriousness of false teaching and rebellion against God's established order. If even the angels are judged for their rebellion, how much more should we be vigilant in preserving the faith? All right, let's move on to Jude 1:7.
Even as Sodom and Gomorrah, and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication, and going after strange flesh, are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire.
Now, the deeper dive here are Sodom and Gomorrah as examples. Jude's third example is of Sodom and Gomorrah, notorious cities that were destroyed by God because of their rampant immorality and rejection of righteousness. Now, these cities, along with the surrounding areas, had given themselves over to fornication and pursued strange flesh, a term that refers to sexual perversion, particularly in this case homosexuality. And take a look at Genesis 19:4-11 for reference. The phrase giving themselves over to fornication highlights the complete surrender of these people to their sinful desires. Their rejection of natural sexual relations for strange flesh emphasizes their extreme moral depravity. Jude states that Sodom and Gomorrah are set forth an example suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. This judgment is both temporal and eternal. The immediate destruction of the cities by fire from heaven, Genesis 19:24, for reference, was a foretaste of the eternal judgment they face. Eternal fire, this phrase refers to the ultimate judgment in the lake of fire, which is eternal separation from God, Revelation 20:14-15 for reference. Sodom and Gomorrah's punishment serves as a perpetual reminder of the consequences of rejecting God's moral order. Now, the deeper dive application here, Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction serves as a powerful warning to those who live in open rebellion against God's will, especially in the areas of sexual immorality and the distortion of natural relationships. This is very key in our day and age. Jude's mention of these cities is meant to remind his readers that there are grave consequences for allowing ungodliness to thrive both in society and amongst believers. The false teachers in Jude's context likely promoted a form of moral laxity, perhaps even condoning sexual immorality. Jude points to the clear historical examples of divine judgment to show that God's justice will not overlook any sin. So in conclusion, in Jude 5-7, we are given three powerful Old Testament examples of God's judgment: the unbelieving Israelites, the rebellious angels, and the immoral cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. Each of these examples serve as a stark reminder of the consequences of turning away from God's truth, whether through unbelief, rebellion, or moral corruption. Jude's use of these historical events is designed to wake his readers up to the dangers posed by false teachers who had infiltrated the church. Just as God judged those who turned away from him in the past, he will also judge those who reject his truth today. As believers, we are called to remain steadfast in our faith, to remember the lessons from the past, and to avoid the errors of those who fell under God's righteous judgment. All right, that is going to wrap up this episode of Deeper Dive here today. Join us next time. We'll move into verse 8 of the book of Jude. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Be sure to like the video and share it with others. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so and click the notification bell to get updates when new videos in this series come out. So until next time, remember, true doctrine fuels a living, breathing faith. God bless.